So, hello and welcome. I am Erica Glessing. I am so glad to be with you today. I have a wonderful guest, Linda Evans. Welcome, Linda.
Thank you. Thank you for hosting this, Erica. It's a wonderful pleasure to be here.
So, Linda is an author and a healer, and she's been kind of involved in the healing arts for a long time. And I was really blessed to have to publish Linda in a book that she wrote on the energy of spirit. She wrote a huge contribution for that. So, I am joyful today to talk with Linda about just kind of how judgment sneaks into our lives unasked, unbeckoned, and just kind of has a party with our lives. Unfortunately, it's not a very fun party, although parties is a great place to deal with judgment, isn't it? So,
Indeed.
yeah, so
Yes.
just kind of start out, tell me a little bit more about you, and then tell me about your chapter in the book.
All right. Well, um, as she said, my name is Linda Evans, and yes, this was my second opportunity to be an author. In my contribution to this book, the power of releasing judgment, and it was quite an expanding experience to sort of sit down and think about and try to put into words and onto paper what I know about judgment, what I know about helping people get free of judgment, since it seems to be such a integral part of life on this planet. And we all know there's been these fabulous teachers teaching people how to get free, like Buddha and Jesus and, hundreds of very potent teachers trying to help us get free from that. Yet still, it's such a pervasive part of our culture. And so it was really a growth expanding experience, just sit down and try to put something into words that's a contribution that would hopefully help people start to become more aware of some tools that can help us get free from it just in our everyday life. As Erica said, you can wake up, as I did, I think I said in chapter, go ahead. I start, my chapter saying, I woke up today thinking I'm going to really just practice non-judgment. I didn't have to go to work that day. I didn't have to do anything. It was like a perfect opportunity. And just immediately I was just aware of how it was coming up for me as I look in the mirror and see, a few little wrinkles or a few new gray hairs. And, I don't personally have a lot of judgment about that, but it still comes up, even when you really make it.
Yeah, and that's one of the things that I find so fascinating is that some of the things that we deal with, like when we do the energy of receiving, or we do the energy of healing, or we take on a thing in our lives, like we take on the money flow, or we take on this or that, it seems like it's something we can go from A to Z and really kick it in the what. Like, it feels like there's things you can do to, like, let's just say your stomach's bothering you. There's things you can do that just like clear out the icky stuff in your stomach and you feel better. You take some garlic, you don't have a cold anymore. I mean, it's like there's all these things that show up that we can do to just shift things. And then there's judgment.
Yeah.
I was thinking, like, how do you forgive the unforgivable? It's like, how do you step into this place where you aren't at the whim of judgment? I was noticing myself really stupid experience. I mean, look at me, I'm even like judging my experience, but it was like, I was at a restaurant and they couldn't process the check. Like they couldn't process all their processing things went down. So I was forced to sit there, and I sit badly, like I don't do this well. And it brought out a really fascinating part of my personality. And as I left, I thought, okay, I was being shown the trigger, and so I'm telling my oldest child about this, and she's 14. She has she's not super compassionate. She's a very interesting person. And she goes, well, Mom, you just hate waiting. But what a great way to look at it. Like, I'm just, okay, cool. Like, what if I don't judge that about me, right? Like, you know, what if I just look at it and it's like, what if I just let go of all the need to understand everything about everything? It's like, it's kind of fascinating to me how it can just pop up in a day. And you give some examples in your chapter about this. So maybe just share one or two examples and then go ahead and jump in because you have a really interesting approach at healing some of this. So go ahead and just chat with us for a bit about that.
Okay. Well, so just in that example that you gave, yes, you know, I think if you just take a deep breath and come to that awareness that you do have a choice, and yes, you can, you know, go into judgment and frustration and anger, or you can take a deep breath and go, okay, I do have another choice. I could, like, maybe take this opportunity to have a little more time communicating with my daughter or whoever's with you. You know, I mean, if you get stuck in judgment, you just get deeper and deeper into that, what we call, what other choices can I make, or what other questions can I ask that will start to help free up this judgment, which I talk about in the chapter is very much like a glue, you know, that sticks to our propeller of consciousness, and it becomes thicker and thicker the deeper we fall into judgments and conclusions and decisions about how it's going to ruin the rest of our day, versus you know, starting to ask a question, you know, what could I do differently to make this few minutes that I'm waiting more interesting? Maybe there's somebody you could talk to, or maybe there's balance your checkbook, or you know, maybe there's other, but you see how the questions started to unlock the depth of the judgments and the frustration and the how it's all a big problem sort of perspective.
Right.
And so that's just kind of what's coming up in terms of your experience. Now, I think the most powerful thing that helps people really get it is when we do talk about a personal experience, and a couple of things that came up that I share a little bit about is how much I started to go into judgment of my son when he was 16 and started making some very unhealthy choices with his life, you know, and as a parent, I think it's a very difficult arena, you know, to be in when you're trying to not be in judgment, trying to, yes, offer your child the, you know, freedom to make whatever choices they want to make in their life. But when you see them starting to make unhealthy or unwise, from my point of view, decisions, it's a very difficult situation. And I found that the more I explained to him how dangerous and unhealthy these things were, the further and further away I was pushing him, and the further and further locked in judgment we were all becoming. And so it was really freeing for me, you know, to just start to ask some questions and to just really start to clear my own judgments out about it, knowing that he indeed does have free will at 16.
Right.
Some parental leverage still, he's a free will. And I guess, if, you know, he's working with his own higher Holy Spirit self, you know, to learn some things that I didn't particularly want to go there with, but
exactly.
Clearly he did. And it was, I only became free and sane, as I talk about it in my chapter, when I just had to get out of the judgment and the worry about these god-awful decisions that he was making with his life. And give it up.
No judgment there at all, Linda.
Exactly. I mean, I think you understand as a parent, it's a tough situation, but I did learn the depth of my soul about how the more I judged him, the worse the situation was getting. And I just had to, you know, to give it up to his higher Holy Spirit self as well as my own, and trust that. And now he's 21 and an entrepreneur out there and doing really quite well.
You know, I love that example because I think you kind of touched on it gently of, I'll do this, the power of judgment to lock things in, that the very things that we've been interested in changing, the power it has to just like lock it harder, lock it harder, lock it harder. It all feels so contractive. Mm-hmm. So talk a little bit about kind of some of your expansion things that you share and your light that you bring. You bring in this kind of beautiful light spirit into your chapter. I'm kind of giving away the ending. You do have to get the book to get her whole chapter. But give us a little bit of that yummy.
Yeah, I think it goes back again to choice. Like, and to me, as I was thinking about what to say, you know, in this sort of brief conversation, it's about making a different choice about the operating system of your life. So like we're born and we get, you know, sort of ingrained with this judgment sort of operating system. You know, you make the right choices and your parents, you know, give you lots of validation and love. You make the wrong choices and they give you punishment and spanking. And so by the time you're 2, you know, like this whole judgment operating system. And so what I try to offer is some tools for changing that operating system from judgments and opinions and decisions and categorizing everything into right and wrong and good and bad to sort of working from a perception, a perceiving, and an awareness, and following the energy of the lightness. You know, if you're working from perceiving and awareness and following what's light for you, it still is allowing you to make decisions about where you want to go with your life or what you choose to do today. But there's not that heaviness and that seriousness and that concrete glue like judgment energy. So
Nice.
that was where I was like, look, I mean, you know, life is filled with making a decision. Is this what you want to do? Is that what you do? And how do you do that without making judgments? I think it's from going with your perceptions about the energy and following the energy of lightness for you. Not that you have to justify or defend or, you know, explain it to anybody. But if you just kind of go with the lightness of the perceptions and the awareness that are available to you at the time. And that's where the question then is the next, you know, sort of tool that comes up. If you feel like you're really back up against a wall and you don't have any choices, if you just start to ask a question, like, you know, what, open up a doorway, and then you ask another question, opens up another doorway and another doorway. And that's some of how I perceive as following the energy or working with your perception and your awareness versus the heaviness of judgments and decisions and rights and wrongs.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much. That's perfect. So just tell us where we can find you. Maybe give us a domain name, and this will be on a page with your information. But go ahead and tell people who are listening to the recording right now how they can catch up with you.
Oh, yes. It's called fullyaliveliving.com is a pretty new website that I've created that's really offering people some opportunities to go, you know, from sort of life of stuckness to a life of hope and creativity and aliveness. And yeah, I'm having a lot of fun with that. There's, a lot of potential for learning more about having a life of lightness and hope and creativity and really feeling alive and enjoying those things that you're creating in your everyday as well as bigger things too.
Thank you so much. Mwah! Thank you for being here, Linda.
I
really appreciate it.
Thank you so much for everything you do, Erica, to create this beautiful space for people to express themselves.